In this podcast, Jordan Peterson interviews Aaron Smith-Levin, who has a YouTube channel called Growing Up in Scientology. Aaron discusses his experiences growing up in Scientology and eventually leaving the organization after spending half his life working for them. The conversation delves into the problem of distinguishing truth from falsehood, especially in the context of religious claims. Aaron explains that he was introduced to Scientology at a young age when his mother, who was raised in a religious household, was looking for something greater and more meaningful in life. Scientology appealed to her because it offered practical tools to resolve personal issues without requiring blind faith. The organization also incentivized members to bring in new recruits, offering financial rewards for doing so. At the lower levels, Scientology offers an explanation for personal issues, attributing them to the reactive mind, which is a collection of recordings of pain and unconsciousness called engrams. The organization claims to have the technology to resolve the reactive mind, allowing individuals to achieve a state of clear where they are free from these negative influences. As individuals progress in Scientology, they are introduced to the idea that they are responsible for everything that happens to them, including their own reactive mind. This shift in responsibility occurs when the concept of the immortal spiritual being is introduced. According to Scientology, spiritual entities are natively godlike and have chosen to handicap themselves to create a more interesting experience. This belief system leads to the idea that individuals are responsible for their own experiences and the entities attached to them. The podcast delves into the manipulative aspects of Scientology, particularly the bait-and-switch tactic used to shift responsibility from the organization to the individual. While Scientology initially presents itself as a practical self-help approach, it later introduces the concept of spiritual entities and places the burden of responsibility on the individual to rid themselves of these entities. Jordan Peterson draws parallels between Scientology's approach and psychodynamic complex theory, which is used in psychotherapy to analyze the underlying causes of personal issues. Both Scientology and psychodynamic theory aim to identify and resolve hidden impediments to an individual's progress. However, Scientology's approach involves a shift in responsibility and introduces the concept of spiritual entities, which is not present in traditional psychotherapy. Aaron explains that Scientology appealed to him because of its promise of spiritual freedom and the belief that human beings are eternal spiritual beings trapped in physical bodies. He was drawn to the idea that through Scientology auditing, individuals could achieve the ability to be fully stably exterior at will with full perception, essentially freeing themselves from the constraints of the physical world. He also believed in the concept of the upper unreleased OT levels, which promised even greater abilities and knowledge. This belief in the potential for further spiritual growth and enlightenment was a driving force in his dedication to Scientology. Aaron acknowledges that there was an aspect of ego appeal in Scientology, as the organization offered the promise of becoming a special and powerful being with the ability to help others achieve spiritual freedom. The belief in the upper unreleased OT levels also provided a sense of purpose and responsibility, as it was seen as a burden to help free humanity from the prison of the physical world. Despite his initial dedication to Scientology, Aaron began to have doubts about the organization. He was influenced by the experiences of high-level Scientology executives who had left the organization and spoke out about the abusive and chaotic environment at the International Scientology Management Base. This revelation shattered his belief that the higher echelons of Scientology were pure and untainted, leading him to question the entire structure of the organization. Aaron describes the pervasive snitching culture within Scientology, where members are expected to submit knowledge reports on each other. This culture creates an atmosphere of fear and mistrust, reminiscent of totalitarian states. The pressure to conform and report on others adds to the coercive nature of the organization. The combination of learning about the abusive environment at the highest levels of Scientology and the realization that the promised spiritual freedom may not be attainable led Aaron to reevaluate his beliefs. He began to question the truth of Scientology and ultimately made the decision to leave the organization. Leaving Scientology was a difficult and complex process for Aaron. It required him to confront the fact that he had been born into a cult and had dedicated a significant portion of his life to an organization that he no longer believed in. He also had to come to terms with the fact that his mother was deeply involved in Scientology, adding another layer of complexity to his decision to leave. One of the most distressing aspects of leaving Scientology was the disconnection from family members. Aaron's mother was kicked out for spreading negative information about David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology. When Aaron and his wife were expelled, they were told to divorce each other, and when they refused, they were both shunned. Their children were also expelled from their schools, and their extended family members were pressured to disconnect from them, leading to a heartbreaking separation. Aaron's experience with Scientology has fueled his advocacy and activism against the organization. He has dedicated himself to exposing the truth about Scientology through his YouTube channel and speaking out about the destructive practices and coercive tactics employed by the organization. His personal journey has transformed into a mission to help others who have been affected by Scientology.